Then we have report writing, its type, format, structure, and its relevance. Now this is again important. So as we have the business letter, we also have report writing. So report writing also has its its certain format which needs to be followed. And what is it now? We need to understand what is report. A report is a statement where the writer or the speaker, it could be in the written form, it could be also in the oral report can also be given. So it is a kind of an information that we give to any individual, to any organization, because it becomes mandatory, it becomes a responsibility to do so, and it is a kind of communication that we are making, right? And what is its goal? See, there's a diagrammatic representation to it, that it could be formal. First we need to understand that report can be formal. It could be a formal statement, a state of affairs, whatever has happened. We can make a report on anything that has taken place, that needs to be penned down, that needs to be written. And it also contains a detailed description of any problem, any situation, any investigation, any recommendation, any action taking. So the purpose could be so many, but the report is so demanded. So as per the need, as per the situation, as per the context, the report is written. And the report has to be very orderly. It follows a certain pattern that needs to be kept in mind. It can be very factual, means based on facts, and also it could be very objective. Objective actually means that it is free of all the biases, and it is as it is. There are no prejudices, there are no biases, and it serves a certain purpose. This is very important. Then we have, what is the purpose of report? So let us now understand what is the purpose of report. So it usually gives information about a company's activities, its progress, and any plans, any problems that a company is going through. So a report can be written. The manager of the company, the CEO of the company can ask any employee to make a report on the progress of the company. If there's a problem, any conflict, if a company is facing, so a report can be written. So it's a record, it's a kind of a record for any kind of decision making, any kind of future reference, any kind of a keepsake for the company. And it sort of recommends that certain action needs to be taken, certain specific action. Why report is written? That it tells us that something has to be done. That is why a report is being written. And for example, the CEO of the company can ask, the employee to write a financial report. Whosoever is in the finance, in the HR section, so has to present a financial report of the company within a day or two. So it becomes mandatory for the HR, employee to, write in a report. So obviously, it also, definitely there has to be a decision making that has to be made, for example. Now sometimes reports are made to persuade the reader, and some action needs to be taken. There could be some controversial situations, it depends. One has to present facts to the management. So report is presenting facts. So nothing is self-made, everything is factual. Minute details goes into the report making, and then the business decides and choose what has to be done once the report is made. Then the features of report. Now what could be the feature of report? What is it that is incorporated in the report? It is a kind of an information. It is a kind of account कि कुछ हुआ है, something has happened, and it is very orderly. The facts are written very orderly. Of any activities, anything that has taken place, it has to be written in a linear fashion, in a certain order. And it has to be very objective, means it has to be free of any kind of biases and prejudices. It has to be as it is. It has to be very real time, factual, based on facts, based on any observation that has been seen and understood. And audience is very specific to it, and obviously very specific audience means whosoever has asked to be written has to be presented with the report. And there has to be, every report needs to have a recommendation, and it is always written by certain specific purpose is always there. So that we need to understand that a report always has a purpose. And it is usually in an organization and in any business setting, a report is never made by the hierarchy. A report is usually made by a lower authority and it is submitted to the higher authority. That is the trend, that is how it is. Then, what are the requirements of a report? It has to be objective, free of biases, concise, to the point. It is continuous is of course one after the other. If report 1 has come, report 2 can also come, report 3 can also come, and there has to be a lot of clarity. Clarity is, it has to be very clear. The purpose is very clear, everything is in clarity. There's nothing, which is, hidden, or there's nothing which is not understood. Everything needs to be, penned down in detail. And what is the relevance of report writing? So we need to understand, that report writing has its relevance, has its, importance. That has to be, kept in mind. So report is a means of internal communication. Obviously, it takes place within an organization, and report can also be a source of feedback to all the employees who are working, obviously, and it is prepared on the basis of the information, on the basis of all that has been gathered. And people, too many employees can come together and they can get connected with one another, and there could be a problem, there could be a matter, and they can come together and and decide upon and write a report on it. So obviously it is prepared with a certain information and guidance. Then a report always facilitates decision making and planning. Of course, once the report is made, if a financial report has been made, then the company's CEO and the heads can all sit together and then decide upon the various profit and loss. This is important for any company. How much profit has been made and how much loss has the company incurred, via the financial report. So it is a very reliable data because it has to be, prepared very meticulously and very carefully. Every detail has to be mentioned. And then once, the report has been made, then everybody sits together, the hierarchy sits together, and then has to take a decision. This is important. So it's a kind of a treasure house, a treasure trove, so to say, because it gives you all the reliable informations, and all long-term planning can be done on the basis of report. Because for example, if it is a financial report, as I just said, so the company can decide upon how much to invest, what should be the expenditure and what should be the investment of a company. So it's a very important tool. It can be used as a tool for future references, for future decision makings, for future success also for any organization. Now here in this we'll cover types of report. So report could be of various types. Now we need to understand what are its types. So it is classified into various categories, and various categories, and on the basis of the media of communications, the formats that we adopt, any frequency of issues, any problems that are coming up, on the basis of the functions. So reports could be of various categories and various kinds, that needs to be kept in mind. So report, first we divide it into, first is oral reports, could be in the form of oral reports, or it could be form of written reports. Sometimes the reports are not written, but they are just being conveyed orally. So orally is just via mouth that it is being conveyed. It could be in the form, this could take place in the form of meetings. And then written is informal and formal. So if it is informal, it is usually informational, and if it is informal, then it is informational. It could be interpretative, it could be routine, depends what kind of a report that it is. Now let us now understand. So on the basis of communication media, so first is oral reports. What is an oral report? It is a face-to-face communication of any impression, of any observation that one has come across. And it is usually, it is comparatively, it is said that it is informal, and it saves time because you just speak on it, on certain issues, on certain problems, on certain challenges, on certain situations. One just speaks on it. So obviously there's no time that goes by in writing. You don't waste time in writing, just speak it out. So it could be, as I said, in a meeting, in a gathering, and it is very simple to present because obviously one has to just speak on it and everybody has to listen. There's a speaker and there's a listener. So oral reports are just as much as it says. Then we have written report. So written report has to be precise, meticulous, planned, accurate, very formal, and because obviously it's a written document, so it can be referred to again and again. And of course it is a part of permanent record of any company, and it cannot be denied. Nobody can deny it because you have it in black and white. You have it as a foolproof. It's a kind of a foolproof system, that if anybody in the future can deny certain things, any employee can deny certain things, certain aspects, then they can be reminded of, because a report has already been made and everything is well documented in a report. So report is very, very important, and of course it can be used as a reference for future. Then on the basis of format and procedures adopted, so informal reports. Now what is informal is usually in the form of person to person. Alright, and it may range from a few lines to several pages, and it is usually written in the form of a letter. So informal report is a kind of a letter which goes to an individual person, from one person to the other person. And formal is a prescribed format is there, and there's a complete procedure that goes with the writing of a report, and then this is finally submitted to the authority, to the hierarchy. Once it is written, it is submitted to the authority, and it could be based on, we've already done that, there could be many purposes to it. So informal report. So the informal report functions, how does it function? It could function to inform, to analyze, or to recommend. So basically this is the format, and this is the functioning of it, that there could be certain information, something that the hierarchy or the manager of a certain firm, certain organization needs to analyze and needs to understand, and there could be certain recommendations also. And informal report could be in the form of a memo. It's an everyday letter, very short document that is written. It could be a short financial report, everyday letter that is passed from lower authority to the higher authority. It could be also in the form of any monthly activity reports that has all the activities that had taken place in a month can be written down in the form of a report towards the end of the month, and can be submitted to the head or to the manager. So depends where it has to be submitted, and this report differs from the formal report, which is in length and formality, because obviously it is an everyday informal report. So the length is it's a very short piece. It could be just running in one page, not more than that, in few lines, and it is a kind of not very formal, but somewhere between the two, and it is written according to the style. Organizational style, and the rule is basically followed. Every organization has its own rules and has its own style. So we have the preliminary and we have also the back material. So what is the front? Preliminary has to do with the table of content, whatever the table of content, it can include the table of content. And supplemental has to do with back material, the bibliography, if there is any, if any research work has been done and any books that has been referred to, anything, indexes, and it could be also the glossaries. Supplemental material could be glossaries also, and indexes also. It could be citations, wherever any work that has been cited can be also mentioned, so in the form of bibliography. Then report also can be very controversial in tone. Why? Because everyday problems are there, everyday issues are there. So obviously it narrows the readership. Very few people can read it. Why? Because it is definitely to do with certain problems that the company is facing. So obviously not too many people should know about it. So it could be very, very confidential too. Then types of informal reports. Now what are the various types that we are talking about? So there could be a sales activity report, we could have a personal evaluation, financial report, feasibility report, literature review, and credit report. So these are the various examples of informal report. So formal report is a collection of interpretation of data and information. So whatever data has been mentioned, it interprets the data. First, the data has to be collected. Whenever we write a report, what has to be done? If it is a financial report, for example, so that if it is a year, one has to write a yearly financial report. So for the entire year, the data has to be collected. It's a primary data that is collected, and then the data has to be interpreted, it has to be explained. So everything goes into that formal report, and it is basically complex. Why? In the sense that a lot of things goes into that financial, for example, that financial report, and it is always used at a very official level. It cannot be used on a personal level. It has to do with the finances of any organization. So obviously it is complex, it is very major also. It is not something very minor, that has to be kept in mind. That formal report it's a major part of any organization, because obviously if it has to do with certain technologies, any advices that needs to be given, any new project probably that has come up, any new experiment, any new study, any new annual report. It's not new, but any annual report that needs to be written, or anything, any old review that needs to be given in a certain, if any development has taken place in any field in an organization, a report can be written on it. So you see, the area of the report is so vast. The area of the report is not like contained and being very minimal. It is very, very vast. Depends on what you are writing, what is the subject matter. The subject matter, you can see, is so vast, and varied subjects that report can be written, and depends what sort of a firm it is, what sort of an industry it is, whether it's a national, international organization. And every organization has its own set of format for formal as well as informal report. But report is a very inherent part of any organization. And what are the types of formal reports? Now that we have certain categories here. So it could be informational, it could be analytical reports, and it could be recommendation reports. Now we need to understand, so there has been a case study. Of course, now we have this case study. So what is a case study? Is a task which aims to teach how to analyze and basically when it comes to report writing, one can also put in the case studies, and real life examples, and real names can be missed, and all credible informations can be given here, like in the form of a story. So we have informational reports. Now what are informational reports? This presents results to the readers, and can when there's a certain problem, when there's a certain situation, that can be written down in the form of a report. Like, for example has already been given here, that there's a manager of a city's website. He can prepare any informational report for the city's council, and report can give all the statistics of the number of the people who pay the city water and all the sewage bills. So this is taking place on an everyday basis. This could be on a monthly basis, this could be on a yearly basis. So when it is to do with informational reports, we can have the status of the current research, whatever because obviously a research has taken place, and the report, if there's any project that has come up, and that project has been very well researched, then a report is made on that project, and all updates of all the operations that has taken place in that regard needs to be also penned down in the report. And it also explains how the organization has to work upon, and if there's any division that needs to take place. And then the result is also presented, and in the form of a questionnaire or in the form of a research. It could be prepared likewise. For example, one needs answer, one do not have answers. If one is making informational, you need certain information from certain set of people, then you can prepare a questionnaire, and you can give those people that questionnaire, and they'll answer it. So once you've researched it, once you've studied their answer, you get to have a better perspective, a better understanding, and then you can make a report likewise on the basis of the questionnaire. What is analytical report? This goes a step beyond presenting results. It does not just have to do with the results. It has to do with more than that. Now, what is analytical report? It not just presents results but also analyze the results, how good the result is or how bad it is, what it does, it needs any, what are the recommendations, what are the findings, what are the conclusions, that has been based on the result. This is important and it has to be pondered upon, so that is what, like, one has to sit and analyze and then decide upon the future course of action. And it always describes why. If we talk about analytical report, will always describe why or how, something has happened, and also explains what is the meaning, of it exactly, what is like really going on, if anything has happened. So why that thing happened, how that thing happened, and what is meant by it, is again very important. And analytical reports could be both formal, it could be informal, just like your informational reports. It is in both the formats. For example, one can explain the cause of a problem. Suppose a company has been facing a problem in a certain area for a very long time, right? Or if there has been a certain situation which is very alarming, which puts an alert to all the employees and the employers, then a report, one has to present the report, and present the results of any traffic study showing incident accident. So for example, there's a management firm, right? And this management firm has to present and has to write a report on all the traffic, and traffic, if there is any accident that has taken place at any intersection, is any, the you have the crossings. So this report will explain what it means, how the accident has taken place. Supposedly there's an employee in any organization has met with an accident, and there has been some problem and related to that accident, and the employee has gone through, a very tragic moment. So a report can be made on that, and it could also amount to that, because it's why and how. So everything needs to be explained, why it happened, how it happened, and who were involved in that accident, and what was the potential loss, if there was any, and what is the future cost that needs to be taken. So obviously analytical reports not just, gives you the account of what has happened in its real sense, but also suggest what options, what actions, which procedures are the best, that needs to be taken up. So it's like a, it's complete in its entirety. Recommendation reports. Now, what is a recommendation report? So this type of report advocates a particular what it gives recommendation, what has to be done, what should be the future course of action. So it usually presents the results, whatever the results are, and also the conclusions, and along with recommendations. So this could be in the form of, a researcher who's writing a thesis, for example. It could be that once the thesis has been written, the researcher has to write its conclusion, its, a support, recommendations, and this is very this type is very identical to analytical report. And in any organization, when it comes to organization, recommendation report is very important, because here, any whatever that has to happen in the future, if there has been any conflict, in an organization, or any challenges that a organization is facing with. So obviously the reports needs to be written, and then this report will always mention what has to be done, what should be the future course. It gives you the recommendation. So one has to consider the recommendations. What if the problem is there, what has to be done about the problem, how the problem has to be solved, and can something be always done about it, or is there a possibility that nothing can be done about it? And if nothing can be done about, again there has to be a certain recommendation that needs to be given, certain methodologies that needs to be changed in a organization. If there's a certain set of methods that any organization is following, any technology that any organization is following and taking up, should that need be changed, anything. So recommendation has to do with any kind of changes, any kind of future course of action that needs to be turned in and turned upon. And it is a kind of, when we talk about recommendation reports, it is kind of a alarm bell. It gives an alarm bell, a sort of, to the company and its employees, that we need to change the strategies. The plan for preparing a formal report. Now, see, first we need to understand that when we prepare a final report or a formal report, so what are the questions that needs to be, answered? So it's like why, the W's, and one H is how. So why, where, when, who, what, and how. These are the things that we need to really keep in mind when we prepare a kind of formal report. And we need to identify the readers, who is going to read. If it is an organization, there's a set of people. There's a very, given set of people that who's going to read your report. So you have to keep that in mind. And purpose is important. What is the purpose? You have to determine the purpose of your report. Then any specific questions that needs to come up, what sort of questions that you need to formulate is important with respect to that report. Then any kind of conclusions that you've come across, and conclusions always include recommendations. And then it also has to be decided, whatever the recommendations has been given in the report, that less of expenditure. For example, a company has to spend less on its, have to minimize its expenditure, for example. So then recommendation has to be given in what ways, what are the ways that particular expenditure needs to be minimized. So a report needs to be written. So every organization and every industry, every individual also, for that matter, we're talking about formal, but of course reports are also informal. So anybody writing a report has to keep in mind that it follows a certain pattern, and depends where you are, in which field you are. It's also field specific, it's context specific, it's industry specific, it's subject specific. What is the subject of the report? So, and what sort of a report are you actually writing upon? So these are the things that needs to be kept in mind.